Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Tim Wilson, writer and an Ask Button admissions coach. And with me is Rachel Ryan. She is also a writer here for LSAT Demon, and she's also an awesome admissions coach with us. How are you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing really well, thank you. I'm excited to talk about resumes as I currently am working on mine for the 1L summer job hunt. I think it's a great time for us to tell our students sort of what we're learning and also what we've learned as people who've been previously employed and are now on the summer job hunt for law school, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm also working on mine now. When we're applying, we think we have this amazing resume that we're sending over to schools. I showed mine to my advisors, and they're like, "What is this?" So, very different resumes that you're going to want to have for law school admissions, and then later on in the legal job market when
Yeah.
you get to law school.
Absolutely. I come from a creative background. Not that the law is not creative, the law can be very creative, but in a very different, I was from a visual arts background. So,
Mhm.
my resume was very beautiful, but it was my admissions, my career counselor said, no, lawyers don't want to look at this, just change it completely. So that was good.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here. Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So, um, pretty much we've been for this episode, we're going to address some questions that we've gotten regarding resumes. And the first question we get a lot regarding is about volunteer work and how it helps our resume, how we should implement it in our resume. We have specific questions talking about is it going to make us look like better people? So yeah, Rachel, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I remember getting this question in the admissions ask button. And by the way, if you ever want to ask us a question, you can just hop over to the admissions lesson on LSAT Demon. And if you hit that ask button, Tim or Leslie, who's our fearless leader, or I will jump on there and answer any question that you have about law school admissions. So this person asked, how much does volunteer work help my resume? Does it show schools that I'm a good person? My work experience is lacking, so I was thinking of volunteering so I can throw some stuff on my resume. And, we talked about this internally. Leslie offered her 2 cents on it as well, which was awesome. And the main thing to remember about your resume is that it is very high value real estate, which we'll talk about a little more when we talk about how long your resume should be. Most people's resumes are too long. We'll get to that in a minute. But think of your resume as a very high value piece of real estate, and what you're putting on there is has to be meaningful. So volunteer work is excellent, but if you go do volunteer work for an hour with the intention of just putting it on your resume, it might not have that big of an impact. Be intentional with it. Search for opportunities that are relevant to what you might want to do as a lawyer. If you can find things that are kind of pro bono adjacent that are for the general public, or if you want to go into family law and you can go volunteer at the local, domestic violence shelter or something like that, where it's like there's a connection, right? And it's a story kind of being told through that volunteer work that you do and making it super intentional, then yeah, it should go on your resume. But if you're just throwing stuff on, that's not the best approach. As far as whether it's going to make law schools think that you're a good person, that's obviously very subjective. It will show, if it's substantive work, it will show that you're involved in your community, which is great. And it shows your skill at doing something, depending on what the work is. You could show a real skill set there, but you don't really need to worry about coming across as a good person because what that means to any one person is going to be very different. And at the end of the day, law schools are looking for well-rounded people who are involved in their communities, but they're not going to be admissions counselors are not sitting there wondering if you're a good person. They're looking at your work experience, your personal statement. You can show the person that you are through these materials. but they're really looking at your actions rather than your words. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you took all the words out of my mouth. The main thing for me, and it's what you already said, but it's the intentionality of it. You know,
Hmm.
these law school admissions officers read thousands of resumes a year. And it's pretty obvious when someone throws in some volunteer experience or something, like a month-long experience to just put on their resume. It's pretty obvious. What you're doing with your resume is it's kind of a lot like your personal statement, and you're painting a story of you. And it's not the story of why you're a good person, it's the story of why you're going to kill it in law school and in the legal
Yeah.
world. You know, volunteering for 2 weeks at a soup kitchen, yeah, that's great. But how does that relate to you killing it and getting an A in civil procedure? Or later on, like being an amazing advocate after law school. What does that show to me? Yeah, you're a great person, but I know nothing about you in the academic or work world environment. You know, what you said before, the things that are going to send that message of intentionality to me are valuable work experience that relates to what you want to do as a lawyer, what you're going to write about on your personal statement, why you're going to law school. If these experiences aren't answering, in part why you want to go to law school, there's not really any point adding them into your resume, in my opinion. But I could be stand corrected by you, Rachel.
No, I agree. Yeah. I think that, like you said, you're painting a picture of who you are. You can show that you're a good person through the work that you've done, but that work needs to, more importantly, show that you're going to be a good lawyer. And part of being a good lawyer is arguably being a good person, but you
Of
know,
course.
you're going to show through your actions rather than just through words and through throwing things on your resume.
So another question that we got, and we frequently get, is I graduated a few years ago. Should I include all my work experience? And how detailed should I be? So, Rachel, what do you think about that?
Ah, I could have written this question. Maybe I did in a different life. No, I also graduated more than a few years ago from undergrad. Let's just say that. And I ran into a similar dilemma when I was creating my resume. Um, Fortunately, I have been in a lot of positions where I've been hiring and looking at a lot of resumes throughout my life. And because I've looked at so many resumes and been in the hiring, been in the process of hiring so many people, um, I knew that my resume could only be one page
Hmm.
because as a hiring manager, it was very rare that I would turn the page because you just don't have time. I was hiring for television a lot. And so a lot of the hiring that I was doing was like, hey, we need someone tomorrow. Go look in your resume bank of all the people you have and start calling down. And you might find someone amazing and then they're not available because the work is tomorrow. So a lot of the hiring that I was doing was very triage based. And for that reason, I didn't have time to look at a two-page resume. I would look at what was at the top, their most recent experience. I would look to see if they knew anyone that I knew that could potentially recommend them, and I was not turning the page. And so when I was working on my resume to apply to law school, I knew that it needed to only be one page. And I knew that I had tons and tons of experience that could have filled multiple pages. And so what I did was really kind of focused on what were the most important bullet points for each of my work experiences that I wanted to have on my resume. It's kind of a great problem to have because you can really cherry pick your experience and you don't want to show gaps. Like, you want to show each thing that you've done, but you don't have to go into the super nitty-gritty details of each thing that you've done, each work experience that you've had. You can just highlight the ones that are most relevant to the work that you think that you're going to be doing as a law student and then as a lawyer. So you can really tailor that experience in that way. And maybe it means that you have less of the skills section on your resume or the interest section. I was talking to my career advisor at my um, law school, and she said that I didn't need the interest section that she was mentioning to some other people because she just told me it's not going to fit on there. And she said the interest section is really so that you have something to talk about in interviews. So if you
Mhm.
have a lot of work experience, if you have work experience that people are going to find interesting for one reason or another, you already have talking points and you don't really need to put those other things on there. So as an older non-traditional applicant, highlighting your work experience is the best thing that you can do. The awards that you got in undergrad, maybe you don't need to list them all. Maybe pick one that's really, really important and kind of leave the rest of them. Um, and your most recent job should be the most fleshed out. And hopefully that, from that job, you're picking the experiences and the skills from that job that will map onto your legal career. But yeah, don't have the resume be longer than a page. And actually, my career advisor said that too. She said that similarly, hiring partners at law firms don't have the time to look at more than one page of your resume, and they often will not turn the page. And you really can highlight the best version of yourself on one page, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, you said everything that I was gonna say. Yeah, I mean, when you have that much work experience, I do imagine you are in an advantage because you can paint the story of yourself how you want to. And again, like I was saying earlier, you have more experiences to show why you're going to be an absolutely killer applicant, you know? Um, so like you just said, it should not be over a page. I remember a ton of law school admissions people really emphasize that to us when I was applying, and I'm sure it's the
Mhm.
same a year later. So it should absolutely be under a page. There are millions of ways that you can do it. Um, you know, uh, I have people here. We went to our resume workshop, one of our first weeks of school here, really preparing for the job market. And all these people with these awards, tons of experiences, stuff where you really couldn't think you could get it into a page. Our team here did that for them. So, really, there's no excuse for it being over a page. You got to keep it under a page. And I think if Rachel can do it with all of her experience, then you can too.
Thank you. The other thing I was going to suggest too is you can throw your 6-page resume into ChatGPT and say, make this one page. And
Yeah.
don't use that, obviously. Don't like take your resume straight from AI. That will be very apparent. But it may help you to highlight, you can say, turn this into a resume. I'm applying for legal internships, right? And it will pull out different things that it thinks are important. And you may have not really viewed your experience in that same way because we're living in our own experience. So we tend to not be able to see it as objectively. So there may be something that you think is really important to have on there and you realize that you don't really need it on there. So it can just condense for you and then you can kind of use those points to create your one-page resume. I've actually done that and it's very helpful.
Yeah, I've also done that 100%. Just catering it for the different jobs,
Hmm.
or catering it for a law school application. It's a great tool, but like Rachel said, don't just straight copy and paste.
Mm-mm. No, it's purely for generating ideas. And disclaimer, if your school has a zero AI policy on resume creation, I don't know that any of them do, but obviously check all of your AI policies while you're in law school and make
Yes.
sure that you're using them appropriately. Um, but yeah, it can just be a helpful way to kind of brainstorm and to turn your experience into something that is a little more condensed and it's going to bring out, the highlights of your experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, it looks like that's all the questions we have. Rachel, do you have anything else you want to say to our listeners?
No, just, good luck if you are currently in the middle of applying. We are wishing you all the best. We want to hear about it. Um, as you're going through your application, if you have questions for us, you can hit that ask button in the admissions module, and Tim and I are, struggling through 1L right now, but very
Yes,
happily struggling through and making it through, and we are still here to answer your questions, and we'll be happy to do so.
absolutely. All right. Well, email daily at lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.